What's going on YouTube? Caesar Media here, coming live from a 2012 Subaru WRX hatch. Now this is not my car, it's my friend's daddy, and he was kind enough for me to borrow it for the day. I just did a car review on this car, so make sure you watch that if you have not. And I'm driving back to my house and I figured I'll do another vlog while I'm at it. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about my very first car and why I got into Evos. This was one of the questions that a lot of you asked for in my first vlog, and I figured I will talk about it today right here while I'm driving in a Subaru, because my first car was a Subaru. It was a 2005 Subaru 2.5 RS. It looked like the 05 WRX, but it actually came with non-turbo. A lot of people know that back in 2005, Subaru made the WRX and the WRX STI, but not many people know about the 2.5 RS that also came out in 2005. So the car didn't have hood scoop, it was non-turbo, and it was extremely slow, but it still had the WRX suspension geometry. Unlike many of the teenagers who get their license when they turn 16, I actually got my license when I turned 20. And this was mostly due to the fact that I lived in cities and I never needed a car, but also because I couldn't really afford to buy a car. So when I got my license at 20 and had the money to buy a car, I was super excited. In my mind, I have always wanted a 240 SX. For some reason, growing up in the 80s in the drifting culture in Japan, I have always wanted to get into drifting. So back then, my parents asked me, what kind of car are you getting? And I told them I'm getting a 240 SX. Little did I know that my parents knew what a 240 was and why people drove 240s. They knew all about people drifting 240s in the toge on the mountains, and obviously my parents told me not to buy a 240. So they told me to get something that was more safe, more reliable, and more practical. Whatever car I was gonna get was gonna be the only car, because that was the only car I could afford. So it had to be 4 doors, preferably all-wheel drive, so I could drive in snow. Good on fuel economy and very cheap. And when I'm saying cheap, I'm talking about $10,000 plus minus $3,000. So I started looking around, and I remember taking a look at a couple Jetta GLIs. You know, the VR6 in those cars sounds so good. But GLI seemed more expensive than I thought, so I started looking at the Subaru WRXs. I knew I wanted an Evo, but it was way out of my price budget, and it was just too much power for my first vehicle. So I test drove a couple 2.5 RSs, and I ended up with a 2.5 RS. And honestly, getting a Subaru as my first car was a great way to meet people, because I did not realize getting a car is not just about the car, it's about the car and its community. If you buy a Subaru, you're gonna make Subaru friends. If you own an Evo, you're gonna make Evo friends. Of course, Evos and Subaru guys hang out together as well, but picking a type of car is going to kind of put you in a certain group of people and friends. I also find it interesting every time I hang out with Honda guys and like high horsepower Civics, because every time we go somewhere at a restaurant or at a car show, they are just so nervous to leave the car there because it gets stolen all the time. So anyways, I had a 2.5 RS for a few years. I did a couple autocross events and track days, but I soon realized that it was just too slow for what I needed. So I ended up buying an Evo about 6 to 7 years ago, and I've been in the car since. So there are a couple reasons why I got the Evo, and it's not so much true today because I have multiple cars. I have a couple DDs, but back 6-7 years ago when I was looking for a new faster car, I was looking for one car that I would be driving every day. So it had to be 4-seaters, it had to have cargo space. I really wanted an all-wheel drive car because back when I lived in Philadelphia, it snowed a lot in the winter time. And I also wanted something with 4-cylinder turbo setup so that the fuel economy wasn't so bad, but I could also make power. This was something I didn't realize at the time when I bought the Evo, but the 4G63 motor in the Evo, it's so easy to work on. When you look at some of the videos I shot of my Evo and look at the engine bay, you open the hood and there is your exhaust manifold right in front of you, and if you take off the exhaust manifold, right under it is a turbo. If you're looking for a car that could make 500 horsepower with this amount of money put into it, the 4G63 motor and the Evo platform is one of your top choices, because with full exhaust, cams, injectors, fuel pump, and E85 and churn, you're gonna be fairly close to 500 horsepower at the wheel, if not high 400s. So if you're looking for best bang for buck performance car, you cannot beat Evos, because you can pick up these cars for low 10,000s now, and all you have to do is put in a couple $1,000 and you're gonna have a 500 horsepower all-wheel drive car with 4 doors. How awesome is that? This is another thing I didn't realize when I first got the car, but I soon realized that the Evo guys love to boost the shit out of their cars, make tons of power, and go to track days and beat the crap out of their cars. Coming from the Subaru community, this was such a significant change, because all the Subaru guys talked about back in 2000, early 2000s, were about, you know, lowering the car, stashing it, or what offset wheels to get. When I started hanging out with Evo guys, it was all about, oh, which track day are you going to, which autocross events are you going to, what turbo do you run. It was all function, and that's exactly what I was looking for. I'm not building a car just to look good, just so I can drive around and cruise around on the streets. I'm all about performance, and owning an Evo and Evo community really fit me very well. So that's it for today, guys. Just answering one of your questions about what was my first car and why I chose the Evo. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments, leave comments in the comment section below, and I will see you in my next vlog, hopefully in my Evo once it stops snowing. So drive safe and see you all.